Hey, I'm Matt, and once a week I break down world building techniques, tricks, and tips, usually by building a world on the fly. But this week we're going to continue our examination of the AALC magic systems, how to build magic systems, and we're going to be looking at limits/leveling systems. And when I started this examination of magic systems and developing this, I was pretty sure that cost systems, which were the hardest, was going to be like the one used the most because it was the best, because it was the hardest. Turns out 3 out of 5 of my world building exemplars actually use a limits/leveling system, which was kind of a surprise. So I hope you stick around as we examine it and find out why limit systems/levels actually have unlimited power. So I've mentioned before that every one of the magic systems in the AALC is mapped to one of Brandon Sanderson's 4 laws of magic. I know it says 3, but it's secretly 4, and that they're mapped to the 4 C's of world building. Well, this one's the easiest to map because it's rule number 2 for Sanderson, that limits are greater than power. This is again to the audience, not to the characters, which I'm sure want more power than limits, but he goes on to show how having limitations on the power makes it more interesting because it forces the characters to be more creative. A great example of this is Batman versus Superman. Superman being all about having all the powers, pretty much every power at some point in time, versus Batman, who is just smart and rich, which is a pretty great superpower to have. I wouldn't mind having it. But that causes Batman to be more creative in his battles against the evil, opposed to Superman, who could just punch it harder. Last time we looked at ability systems, which were based on points. Point systems, which are based on abilities, which is the second A in the AALC. These drain the usage, the power of the user. Usually it's called mana, which is pretty interesting. Is really worth looking into why mana is called that. That's probably a episode of its own. Level systems stand on top of the point systems, which are the abilities, which are on top of appearance, which are the soft systems. And unlike the point systems, which drain mana out of the user, the leveling system doesn't usually drain it, which gives them an unlimited use of it. As I said, 3 of my exemplars use that. The Jedi, in the movie versions at least, I know there's video games that don't, but even the old role-playing game from the 90s, that system, which was really great and how I cut my teeth on it. You could use your powers as much as you wanted. The question was if you succeeded or not. Avatar, Last Airbender, their powers are pretty much as long as you can keep moving, you can keep using them. There are limitations, obviously. The movement aspect and knowing the power is one of them. But probably the most famous of the leveling systems is, ironically, Harry Potter. As you remember from all the movies, like when they're dueling and stuff, they had their wand, they, boop, 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 as many times as they could move it and speak. Side note, this is not actually my wand, it's my wife's. That's because my wand went missing about 2 years ago when I was unpacking this room and my toddler picked it up and played with it. I know it's not destroyed and it is most likely somewhere within 10 feet of where I'm sitting now, but it's been 2 years and I haven't found it, so I'm making do with my wife's. Leveling systems are based on limits, which are all about unlocking powers as time goes on, especially the ascending types. Once you unlock the power, it's pretty much yours to use. Now, soft systems were again at the bottom, and they were just, make the magic cool. Point system were on top of it, and were what the things could do. Leveling system, sitting on top of that, uses both of these, and is all about, what you can't do and how you can do it creatively. And as these systems progress from soft to points to level, they become harder, which means that they can solve conflict in the story itself. They can resolve the conflict and not just cause it as with the soft systems. And they can resolve the conflict because the audience understands it. And the greater the audience understands it, and this is Sanderson's first law, the more that the magic can resolve the conflict of the story. Harry Potter, Avatar being great examples right there. This works dramatically opposed to in game systems because the characters are usually underdogs. As a leveling system, they are at level here and are usually battling enemies that are right here. This works for the Jedi and the prequels and all the other films and stuff because they're fighting Vader and the Emperor, which are much more powerful. Avatar, as with Harry Potter, both of them have to be creative in their uses of their powers because they are fighting adults who are much better trained, and as such they have to be creative, the kids that is. Being underdogs against more powerful characters makes their resolution more dramatically appealing because they have earned more when they finally succeed. The level/limit system is perfect for this underdog status and has 4 different types that you can use. The first one is the soft level static, and this one does not increase over time, hence the part of the static. Once you unlock this power, whatever it is, you're locked into it and it does not increase over time. This is a lot of times like innate abilities. You could argue, Wolverine's healing, it's always on. His sense of smell is always on. Doesn't really get any stronger, though the comics have changed that a little bit. Anyways, the greatest example from my exemplars would be Harry Potter's Parseltongue. He can speak to snakes, and that doesn't increase or decrease. He can just turn it on. It's always on. It's innate. Another example is actually the Time Turner, which is exceedingly powerful and is actually a great counterexample for the leveling system and the limits, but we'll discuss more of that later. But the Time Turner, again, had one ability, and it just did that thing every time, same thing every time, not advancing at all. The second type is the soft level advancing, and in that one, as the name might connote, it increases power over time. I guess X-Men, if I'm going to use more examples, Cyclops is in, at first he can use, it causes this much damage, his optic blast, but as he gets older and learns to control it more, he can do more and more damage until he can level cities, kind of thing. And not a great example, but an example from Harry Potter would be Harry's bond with Voldemort. At first it's just kind of, my head hurts whenever he's nearby, but as time goes on, that power advances so he can get into Voldemort's head and Voldemort can get into his. Not a perfect example because, again, it's kind of a curse, but yeah, it works. And both of these types, soft level static and soft level advancing, can be used to solve the problems of the story, can resolve the conflicts exactly once. As in, like, the bad guy doesn't know about it, it's considered a low level ability, and so the character uses it against the bad guys, and it's, dramatically okay because the bad guy didn't know about it, so they used their ability cleverly. All of these leveling systems are all about creative use of the power. That's the second C, and actually the first C of the 4 C's of world building, and maps again to Brandon Sanderson's second law of magic. You can use this exactly once, like the Time Turner was, as in, it was kind of a soft power, no one really understood it except Hermione, and then she pulled it out for the finale, and it worked and it solved all of the problems, and it was kind of based on a character arc and a reveal, and they used a lot of info dump equity, as in she kept hinting that Hermione had this power throughout, and that she finally explained it at the end, so it got away with actually coming in at the finale and solving all the problems. But the second time you use this power, it becomes repetitive. If Wolverine used his healing power to fake someone out because they didn't know he had it, great. Second time he uses it, you're like, well, yeah, that's Wolverine. He heals fast, so pretending to be dead isn't that great. So, which is probably why the Time Turner was disappeared from the Harry Potter series, but again, we'll talk about that later. Third type is the hard static, and this is one where the audience understands the parameters of the story, opposed to the Time Turner, which it was just suddenly revealed. These are usually much more powerful than the next level up, believe it or not. And it is such, because it's so powerful, it usually doesn't involve the protagonist having the ability. It's more like Genie from Aladdin. Aladdin doesn't have the semi-cosmic whatever might. It's Genie that has it. House elves in Harry Potter, another great example of that. They have this amazing power, but it's not the main character that has it, and they can only use it for very, very specific things. Conflict can be dramatically resolved with these because the characters and the audience understand the rules to it and find a way to exploit it. This would be as in Aladdin when he finally gets Jafar to wish to himself to become the genie because he knows the genie can't use the powers without having someone wish it. So Aladdin is exploiting the rules of the genies. Same with the house elves, if they just need to be given something, an article of clothing, so Harry Potter uses that to his advantage to get Dobby, and which then later is used in the story itself to resolve some problems. All right, so finally we come to the fourth kind, which is hard level advancing, and this is the bread and butter of magic systems. Probably a great example in literature is Mistborn, which of course, Brandon Sanderson, who's developed these laws, but also the Jedi, and Avatar, and in Harry Potter. And all of these, again, you unlock your power and then it can be used an unlimited number of times. There's a caveat to this, and that is kind of, how much you can physically keep doing it. Avatar, for instance, you're getting tired. Same with Harry Potter, they're getting exhausted. Jedi, over time, if you just keep using it, you're going to get tired. And in the hard level advancing, you can either have specific spells, a la Harry Potter, where you're going to learn this, and it does this, this, and this. Accio brings whatever object that you know. versus an effect on the environment type, which is Avatar, all the airbending or all the bending types. You know, if you're Earth, you can lift this much Earth, and as you get stronger, you can lift even more. You know, fire, you can cause fire or channel lightning. These are all unlocked the further along you get in terms of levels. The more you have worked with the power, the further you're advancing, and as such, the more abilities you can unlock. There's not really a hard, specific thing about you can only do this one power, but once you have control over air, you can blow things, blow it harder, blow it further, etc., etc. And yes, I realized how double entendre that sounds now that I think about it. Now, as I said, there is a kind of sorta to this. There's always a caveat, and that's the exhaustion trap. Much like with the point system and the last time, you understand that you're running out of energy as you're doing it, even if it's not a specific set energy that is explicit. You're getting more and more tired, and as such, you can fall into the exhaustion trap, in which your character is supposed to be really exhausted and tired, and at their lowest moment before the finale, where they get that inner resolve to conclude it, but you're going to have to do a little more work to set it up within the story to resolve it, other than just being really tired and finding that inner resolve. We'll talk more about that in the cost system a little bit later, in the next video anyways. Now, the leveling system has levels, as the name connotes, and you don't really have to do it much like the point systems. You can just eyeball it and just kind of know, like, they advance, they get more powerful. Harry Potter and Hogwarts is a great example of the leveling system, where each year is a level, and each year they are learning specific spells that are increasing in power, and and again, they're underdog status because they are fighting against adults who are all the way through this system and are much, much higher level. They're beyond 5th year, I guess 4 years, however many years it is in Harry Potter. The adults are obviously beyond that. Now, you can either, like I said, you can either eyeball it and just say, this sounds like a 1st level power, this sounds like a 3rd level power, or you can actually set it up with a pool system, much like with the points, is then you say, well, a 1st level character probably has 5 points to work with to make their magic, and then you design all the magic spells to be within 5 points. A 3rd level has 15 to work with, 6th level has 30, that kind of thing, and you design your spells or abilities based upon whatever pool you think that level has. Again, with the point system, it's all arbitrary. Assign whatever pool you want for them, whatever you think feels right. It's your system. Do what you want. This is just a great way to keep it organized and keep it consistent. And again, these systems work better when the enemy is much more powerful. They are a higher level. The adults in Harry Potter and in Avatar, they were always fighting people who were more powerful than them and had more experience with it. And as such, they had to use their powers creatively. Now, advancing systems, both for the soft and the hard, they can use a cost fluctuating system. But again, that's for the video next time. Now, I had mentioned the Time Turner as being a great counterexample, and this is that it was so powerful. It was really, really powerful, and people figured it out, how powerful it was and how they could exploit it much, much after the fact. And I'm going to bet that Rowling didn't really take that in consideration. She was thinking of it in a single-term story, a single use. This is a really great reveal. So, it was cool that she had this power because I've set it up all the time. And it really was in that story itself. But people started thinking about it and expanding upon it, and they realized that, oh man, like this thing, if the Aurors had it, they could stop anyone from escaping Azkaban as long as they knew about it within the whatever hour, 90 minutes or something. They could go back. Harry's parents could have been saved as long as they just had this Time Turner, which is why she wrote them out of the story. The Ministry of Magic battle, supposedly they fall through their own time turning and just keep going back and back so they can never be reached again. Very wise on a story level because, hey, we have this thing, we know its rules, we know what it can do, let's go get that and exploit it. So that's why they were written out, because the levels for the kids were supposed to be levels 1, 2, and 3, basically corresponds to what grade they were in at the time. But this Time Turner is just super powerful. Like it can affect the story significantly, and as such, they shouldn't have been wielding that power. Now, this is very different than the potions, but we'll discuss that in the cost system. Okay, let's do some quick example of this. When I started doing the AALC in the soft systems, I had a randomized system, the magic system created, and one of the powers in it was chaos, and another one was an air blast. The chaos was a soft hero incomplete, meaning that the character didn't have any control over it, and the air power was the chosen one, as in it got the character out of trouble. And I explained at the time that these powers, once they were used, and once the story kicked into gear in the second act, go check the video if you want a refresher course. At this point, they was going to have to start being understood. So we're going to take those two powers and move them up to a leveling system. This is in the second act, where the character is being taught by their mentor what the magic is, what the limitations are, and we're going to say these are going to be level systems which could be unlocked. The first one's going to be the chaos magic, and we're going to do specific spells for it. Bringing up the old scale that we had up last time, we realized we can make a spell that is basically the evil eye, which is you can cause an irritation on someone, which is a 1-point ability when it comes to change and damage, to one person, again 1 point, within line of sight, 5 points, that lasts for a week. That's 10 points. This is a 17 level point spell. Could be powerful, could be not, depending on how many pools we're giving them. It could be a 3rd level spell. We could just be, I think like a lot of the kids in Harry Potter had like jinxes where you'd cause someone to break out for like 5 minutes and they would go away. So it'd be like a 1, a 1, a 1. So a 3-point level spell, something that of course they can learn and use as often as they want. If I wanted to make a more powerful spell that would be used like the dim mock or the touch of death, it could incapacitate someone, 15 points, one person, 1 point, for a week, 10 points, 26 point spell, probably more powerful, probably in the 4th or 5th level range, depending on how many pools I give to them. And that kind of thing. You give low-level spells that, to the lower-level characters. You can eyeball this. You can say, oh yeah, like the touch of death, probably shouldn't give it to young kids. Probably shouldn't give it to the first-level magic users. That would be a probably poor system. Again, though, once this spell is taught to the characters, once it is unlocked, it gets an unlimited use within, physical exhaustion kind of thing. The second would be the air magic, and I'm basically recreating Avatar now that I'm thinking about it, and the airbending. This is more fluid, as in I just want them to be able to blow gusts of wind, and the range. If I make it a further range and a larger cone, then I have less force. So it would all be based around the force, which would be the change. And so if I was so if he was blowing it really far away, it would have to be pinprick, but it could be very precise kind of thing. Whereas if I wanted a big gust that could knock someone back, it would have to be very close, and how far I knock them back is all based kind of eyeballed. So I couldn't knock them back 60 feet without it being a pretty powerful spell. So I would eyeball that one if I was using it. And this is what one of the great things about the leveling system and the this breakdown from the point system is that it can help you pick out if something is wrong. For instance, if the power just seems wrong, it's just too strong. If I knocked the bad guy off a cliff and killed them, in the story, and I'm like, well, let me look at how powerful I would have needed to do that, and like, oh, that would have cost 60 points. Like, this is a 3rd level character, I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably find a more clever use of the power rather than just brute force. And that is one of the great things about the leveling system, is that it's all about the creative use. I keep thinking back to the part in where Moody tells Harry, or the fake Moody, whatever, use your wand, get your broom. You're good at that. You can get that. Use your power cleverly. He pretty much beats that into him of like, you're not that powerful, so use it well. And that's one of the things I think Harry Potter did, and they got that wish fulfillment for people, is, and especially kids, of like showing up adults and showing them how they can do cool things even with lesser abilities. And again, if you're using the power and it seems way, way overpowered when you actually break it down, like the time turner, when you realize how much effect it could and you extrapolate all of it, it's probably a good idea to write it out of the system or don't include it if you've caught it early enough into the story. You'll unconsciously feel if it feels wrong, and this can help you diagnose why it does. So there you go. The level system based on limits is really, really cool, and that's because it's so versatile. It forces the characters to think creatively, which makes the audience feel that all these abilities were earned, and which makes the creator, the author, much more creative in the application of their magic. So there you go. Limits, level system. I hope you stick around for cost system, which should be up hopefully next week, and I hope they can help you to build some better magic systems. You're kind of locked into whatever. You're kind of locked into whatever. You're kind of locked into whatever. Once you unlock